Hello friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Let's start our video today with a story in which a client acted like a jerk and abused an employee, but our OP intervened and got his revenge. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Why yes, we should ring up every item. I used to be a front-end manager for a large hardware chain in the Midwest. It was early in the day, around 9 a.m. or so, and my head cashier had called in sick, so I was already behind in a lot of ways. Luckily, I had a girl scheduled who was a former head cashier who'd left the company and came back as a full-time cashier. We'll call her Jenny. Jenny was smart and worked hard. She was always professional and was quick with a joke. I liked when she was scheduled to work with me. Jenny was around 7 months pregnant and had the most awful thing said to her because she didn't have a ring on her left hand, but that's another story, and I'd given her the phone while I was trying to accomplish various tasks to set up my day. She stood by the exit doors greeting people and watching the registers to make sure things were running smoothly. She noticed that a customer, a contractor, was coming through with a few rail carts of lumber, trim, and various pieces of hardware. The guy had enough items that he had easily been in the store for a couple of hours, probably just a few minutes after we opened. Jenny, knowing that this one customer would take a long time to ring up and didn't want to hold the other cashiers up, told me she was going to jump on her register to ring him up, which made sense, and I was glad she thought to do it. I stopped doing what I was doing and took over the post by the door. Everything was going like it should. People were coming, people were going, and the registers were running smoothly. Jenny forgot to give me the phone when she jumped on her register, but it wasn't ringing, so no big deal. She'd been with the customer for around 10 minutes, which didn't seem crazy given the amount of things he brought to the register when it happened. All of a sudden, the smart, funny, always professional Jenny walked away from her register, yelled, "F this, I'm out," burst into tears, threw the phone 15 to 20 feet, and ran out the exit doors. I was instantly enraged because while I didn't know what he said, I knew it had to be awful. I didn't know what the problem was, but I was about to find out. I marched over to the customer, and I'm sure I looked angry. I got about a foot away from his face and had the following conversation. "What did you say to her?" "Nothing. I don't know why she got so upset." I realized this wasn't true, but I couldn't do anything. "Well, what's the problem?" "She didn't ring me up right." "What do you mean?" "She counted wrong. I've only got X of these boards and Y of these and Z of those. She was trying to charge me too much. I asked her if she could just ring up every item, but I was in a hurry." "She didn't ring up every item because you told her you were in a hurry. Instead of scanning each item, she'd counted and manually entered the amounts." "But she didn't ring me up right. I don't want to pay more. I just think it would have made sense to ring everything up individually." I instantly realized that I could probably take 30 minutes ringing up the number of items he had, and he was in a hurry, and he just devastated one of my best employees. I realized I must do this. "You know what, sir? You're right. It would make more sense to ring up each and every item." I then canceled out each and every item on the screen, told the guy we're going to make sure we got it right for him, and began ringing him up. One by one, I rang up each item on all 3 carts. Twice he told me he was in a hurry and he really needed to go, and both times I responded, "I know, I just wanted to make sure we get this right for you." So, 33 minutes later, I've rung up everything and double-checked each item for accuracy and hit the total button. I'd written down the total that Jenny got and quickly subtracted the difference in my head. "Me, your total comes to XXX dollars and XX cents. And it's a good thing we went back through everything. Jenny was going to charge you an extra $2.78. Customer says nothing and slides credit card. Me, have a great day." I walked away knowing I'd just ruined his day because he was a jerk and he asked me to. Jenny would never tell me what he said to her. I think she was afraid if she told me and he came back to the store, I'd lose my job. She may have been right. And our next story. Don't mess with the pregnant lady. When I was pregnant with my second child, many years ago, I took a part-time job working at the Base Recreation Center for Morale, Welfare, and Recreation on a small military base where my husband was stationed. When I was hired, there were a total of 4 employees. Myself, my manager, Amy, the girl I was hired to replace, her husband was due for transfer, and Frank, a retired Marine who lived in the RV park on the base. My manager's boss, Carrie, also had an office in the building, but she spent most of her time off-site. 3 months into my employment, my boss was promoted to the main office, and I was asked to cover her position until a replacement was found. Frank took my temporary promotion as an insult, as he had seniority, and quit. So my part-time job that was temporarily a full-time job suddenly became a 60-plus hour a week job. Bear in mind, I was almost 7 months pregnant at this point. The new manager was hired relatively quickly. Base commanding officer got involved. Not really relevant to the story. New manager was great. We enjoyed working together. Unfortunately, a month after she started, she received an offer for a higher paying job and decided to take it. When I was again approached to cover the position, I agreed, but only on the condition that I was also considered for the position permanently. It was a General Schedule 5 position, roughly $40,000 per year in today's pay rate. General Schedule positions were hard to come by during this time. Clinton era, lots of military downsizing. You basically had to be in a General Schedule position to get another one. Carrie agreed and told me she'd let me know when the interviewing process started. She also informed me that I needed to train the new assistant. I was also an assistant when she started on Monday. Monday rolls around and new girl, Heidi, comes in. I begin processing her paperwork and I realize she makes more an hour than I do. I found this odd and asked her if she's ever worked in morale, welfare, and recreation before, and she said no. I let this go for now and decided to ask Carrie about it when she came in. Carrie didn't know and told me to ask Linda, our HR payroll clerk, when I turned in Heidi's paperwork. After my shift, I stopped by Linda's office and handed her the paperwork to ask her why Heidi was being paid more than me. She immediately got defensive and asked me how I know Heidi's pay rate and said something about how we're not supposed to discuss such things, something I was unaware of, and I pointed at the paper I just handed her and she said, "Oh." She stared at me for a moment, then apologized to me for making an assumption and said she needed to look at my file. I said fine, I could wait. She stared at me again, then stood up suddenly and went over to a filing cabinet. Yes, we still used hard copies. It's the government. They love paperwork. She pulled out my file and brought it back to her desk, flipped through it a couple times, then typed on her keyboard and said, "Oh, it seems there was a cost of living raise." I asked why I wasn't also given this raise, and she said it must have been a clerical mistake and she was fixing it right then. I thanked her and left. Cue 3 weeks later when Carrie comes into the center and informs me that they found a replacement manager and she was starting the next day and I'd need to train her. I was shocked. I said, "Replacement? When did they start interviewing?" "Last week. Didn't Linda call you?" "No, no one called me." She apologized and said there was nothing she could do about it, but if I wanted to make a complaint, I'd need to speak with our regional manager, Carrie's boss. I was livid. When I got off work, I went over to my best friend's house and she told me she'd already heard about what happened. It was a really small base. My best friend worked for the base contractor as their lead purchaser. She pretty much knew everything that happened on base. She said the girl they hired was one of the waitresses at the officers' club and she had quite a reputation. Everyone on the base called her USO Sally. She suggested I talk to the Master Chief for advice on how to handle the situation. My husband at the time wasn't as supportive of that idea. He didn't like to rock the boat. He said they probably hired someone else because I was about to go on maternity leave and I should just let it go. I told him I'd take a couple of days to think it over. I spent the next 3 days attempting to train what I can only call the flakiest person I've ever met. She'd come into the center for an hour or two at a time, then leave for several hours before coming back for an hour or two. I took at least 8 messages for her from 5 different men. One of them informed me he was in Japan and wanted to know when I expected her back. No, we didn't do any work with any bases in Japan. They were all personal calls. On the second day, her ex-husband showed up looking for her while she was out and asked if he could leave their son with me because he had to go to work. By day 3, I'd had enough and went to the Master Chief. Master Chief listens to everything, including the pay discrepancy, and says he'll look into it and get back to me. The next day, before I even get to work at 10, Carrie calls me and asks me to come into the main office. When I get there, it's suggested that I finish the week, then go on maternity leave. I ask why, and I'm told that I went outside the chain of command by involving the Master Chief, and that was unprofessional. By this point, I'm so angry I told them that I'd turn in my keys at the end of the day, and I went back to the Master Chief. He was PO'd and said he was the chain of command. Several weeks later, I'm in the hospital after having my son, and my best friend comes into my room and says, "Oh girl, you're not going to believe what happened." Linda, the HR payroll clerk, and her husband, he was the manager of the officers club, were arrested for embezzlement. That cost of living raise I didn't get, Master Chief had requested an accounting audit of the entire department. When they went to arrest them, Linda's husband had a heart attack and had to be taken away in an ambulance. The day I got home from the hospital, I got a phone call from our regional manager, and he thanked me and told me that if I wanted the job, it was mine. I suggested they hire Heidi for the position. She was a single mom with 2 kids. They took my advice. LOL. I got some ridiculous letter from our fleet admiral thanking me for my service. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.